Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Okay, so what I've been doing the last couple days is I'm delving back into my NLP training and Ericksonian hypnosis training, going back and I'm restudying everything from beginning to end. So essentially listening to the practitioner course from beginning to end, then master practitioner, then trainer's training. So we have home study programs that we had to buy. It was expensive, actually, about $300 to $500 each. I think the trainer's training was $600. So I'm literally starting from beginning to end, and I'm starting to also read some NLP books that I wanted to reread for years now. And I noticed a really unique coincidence that just happened in the last 20 hours. Alright, so where we're at now in this practitioner course that I'm going over again, we're listening to the song and the lyrics. This Is Love by George Harrison. He's a former band member of the Beatles. So we're going through the lyrics of his song, This Is Love, and what we're doing is what's called a linguistic analysis. So what we're doing is I want to use the word picking apart, but maybe that's not the proper phrase, but what we're doing is we're picking apart the lyrics to figure out what is he doing with the languaging, okay? Now, why is this important? Because languaging is the basis of how we create our thoughts and our emotions and how we imagine things. Another way of saying that is it's the basis on how we express our emotions and how we communicate to other people the thoughts, emotions, and feelings that we have inside. So as a therapist, or call it an NLP trainer, emotional healer, I have to reverse that and be like, okay, so what are they saying to me? So I see languaging in and of itself, how do I say this, is not very good at getting across the message. I mean, how many times have you had a conversation with someone and they completely misunderstood what you said? So the greater I can understand you, the greater I can help you. The faster I can help you, the more effective I can help you get you the results that you want. So when they teach us, man, there's just a series of just even these first three basic pages, the Milton model, the meta model, and the presuppositions. Okay, so on this one page, there's 10 presuppositions, and then, there's a whole series behind that, and then you've got the meta model, the Milton model. So essentially what we're doing is we're looking at the language and how you're using it to describe your internal experience. So another thing is they give us a tool of asking specific questions depending on, like, okay, I'll give you an example. So here's just a presupposition page. So are you using words for existence, possibility, cause and effect, complex equivalent, awareness, adverb, adjective? Is it exclusive? Is it either or? Is it inclusive or? Is it ordinal, which means, is it temporal, meaning time? There's just a ton of things that I'm not going to go through the whole list. So I have to listen to all this stuff and see, like, where are you at and what is keeping you from being unstuck. Furthermore, they give us a series of questions to ask to dig deeper, to kind of help you pull out what's behind the stuff that you've already given me. Alright, I'll give you one from the meta model. So this one's under generalizations, number 6, universal quantifiers. The reason I'm using this is because I know that you've done it and I know that you've heard it. So someone will come along and they'll use the words like all, every, never, everyone, no one, etc. So they may say something like, she never, universal quantifier, never, she never listens to me. So the response to find the counter is never? What would happen if she did? So the response, what it does is it kind of pulls back the information to make you conscious of what you've been doing. So haven't you ever been in a stuck state and you didn't even realize? God, it's just so funny as I'm talking. I'm listening to the patterns that I'm using right now, so it's kind of weird. See, humans can't. I'm doing it. Okay, we can't not use these unconscious patterns without, if we're talking. So if we're talking, we're using these patterns all the time, and everyone around the world, they're unaware of the unconscious patterns they're using. So in general, now it's so funny because this is one of the meta model things, is when you're in a stuck state, you'll use things like will never, not, can't, won't, shan't. So there's a series of questions for me to go, oh, they're not aware of what they're doing. And what I do is I'll use counter questions to pop you out. I'll give you one more because you've heard this before. So this number 7, modal operators. Modal operators of necessity. So these people use words like should, shouldn't, must not, have to, need to, it is necessary. Oh, by the way, these last two are things that narcissists do all the time. So I simplify them by calling them negations. That's my word. Can't, won't, shan't, shouldn't, mustn't, what's the other one on here? Must not, have to, need to. Like, these are words like you must do it, you can't do it. So the counter to that would be, well, okay, so let's say someone says, I have to, meaning it's like a must, okay? So I have to take care of her. So the question would be, well, what would happen if you did? And also, well, what wouldn't happen? No, what would happen if you didn't? And then another one would be, what wouldn't happen if you didn't? And another one would be, what wouldn't happen if you did? So all we're doing is, think of it as like you're stuck in 360 degrees. So you're stuck on 1 degree and you can't move around. See, that's the problem. The ideal way of being in life is to go from 1 degree to the next, to 20 degrees over to 15 to 30 to 127, to go all the way around in an open, unlocked way. So you flow, so you can shift from one perspective to another, so you can get a greater perspective of what's going on. And these are the problem solvers of the world. These are the people that for some reason they just seem to always be able to figure stuff out. It's because they're not stuck on one perspective. They can see it from different angles. Usually most people, they do it on an unconscious level. So we're going to do an exercise a little bit later, but that uses one of the patterns, okay? Okay, so this is what I wanted to say. Okay, every now and then I'll get someone, because it's kind of conditioned into our society, is a lot of people are used to going to talk therapy. Well, here's what we found out. Talk therapy doesn't work. So back in the 90s, when I was taking the training, there was a couple studies that they brought up, and they said 8 out of 10 people, so 80% of the people that go to a licensed therapist of some form, whether a master's degree, doctorate degree, psychologist, marriage, family counselor, whatever, they get worse, okay? So then there's 10% where they don't change at all. They just, they don't get better or worse. They just stay the same. And then there is the 10% that actually do get better. But here's the deal, especially back then, psychologists had no idea why they were getting better or what they said or what they did or what actually happened. So NLP bursts onto the scene with Dr. Bandler, Dr. Grinder, and then they studied a lot of different people like Virginia Satir, who was a phenomenal marriage family therapist. So one of the things she was doing was very unconscious. In fact, they would listen to her and they wrote a book about what she was doing. And she's like, well, what is this? And they're like, well, these are the patterns that you're doing. She goes, I don't do that. And they're like, yeah, you do. You do it all the time. And here's the deal. Dr. Bandler and Dr. Grinder had 3 degrees. Now, the combination, I don't remember one or the other, but it was like they both had a doctorate degrees in like linguistics, which is the study of language, computer science, and then I think it was like a master's degree in math, okay? And let me think if the other one had a different master's degree in something else. So it was linguistics, math, and computer science, okay? And so what happened was, because they were so left brain, so focused, so specific, they started pulling unconscious patterns out of what people were doing. See, Virginia Satir took decades and decades of working with clients and study to get really good at helping couples and families, heal, and especially relationship stuff. So that's why they went and studied her for a while, and then they just went and said, hey, we could. They wrote a book. Okay, sorry, I didn't quite say this right. In the summertime, what they would do is they would edit books to make extra money. Okay. Now they used to be professors at University of Santa Cruz in California. So they would edit these books for extra money, and one of them was Virginia Satir's book. And what ended up happening was they said, and here they were so naive, they didn't really quite understand what they were doing. They said, oh, we can do this. Why don't we do weekend seminars and make extra money? So here they were, they read one book and they started teaching people stuff, and all of a sudden their problems started going away. And what ended up happening was they ended up finding Virginia Satir, and they started to study her and ask her questions and to do research on her work, etc., and they started pulling out what she was doing unconsciously that she wasn't even aware that she was doing. Now, I don't know about right now, but if you go back in time about 20 plus years, 20, 30, and 40 years, Virginia Satir was a huge name in the therapy industry because she was so good at helping people to heal. So then they went on and studied Milton Erickson's work. Milton Erickson was a doctor. He had his doctorate degree in psychiatry, but he really began to master, and I mean master, the art of hypnosis. And it's called Ericksonian hypnosis. Okay, that's the now I did train in some other ones, but Ericksonian hypnosis was the one that I spent years and years studying. So once again, they were editing books, and so Dr. Bandler and Dr. Grinder, because of their study of science, math, and linguistics, it caused their brain to look at things in a different way that other people didn't view things. It was also the combination of they were editing books during the summer to make extra money. So it's kind of like their brain was prepared and created and designed and conditioned in a certain way to see things, and then they happened to make the connection of, oh, we are studying therapy books now, and boom, NLP was created. So then they got on to figuring out, well, how are we going to sell our courses? Like, well, why don't we, read some books on master salesmen? Or it was either that or they were editing a sales book. So regardless of what happened was they started seeing what people were writing in their books unconsciously, not even realizing that they were doing. And they would go to the author and say, hey, man, that's a really cool pattern. And like, what pattern? What are you talking about? They would have no idea what they were doing. See, learning is at the unconscious level. So these salesmen would start out in sales, they're a teenager or 20s or something like that, and they would just read books and listen and do car sales or house sales or whatever. And unconsciously, they would begin to pick up stuff that they were doing, but they never actually wrote it down. It just became part of their habit or part of their unconscious pattern. So this is why some people become successful and they don't really know why, and some people don't. We have unconscious patterns. So it turns out when people write books or even teach stuff, 80% of the stuff that they're teaching, they're not even aware of the unconscious patterns that they're spewing out. So a lot of men, when they take my course, Cracked Female Code, they will call me months later, 3 to 6 months later, and like, you're not going to believe this, but I've been applying this stuff to my sales and marketing, etc., etc. I'm like, well, yeah, these are the same techniques that you use to improve your sales. All right, so let's go to the beginning of this video. And then and go over the pattern or something that I saw recently, the coincidence, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it up with the exercise. Okay, one more piece before we do those two things. So Bandler and Grinder were doing these weekend, workshops or trainings or seminars or whatever, and they were getting phenomenal results with people, not quite realizing, not quite realizing, they didn't realize, Like, you're not supposed to be doing this until after 10, 15, 20 years of developing and practicing. And they're going out healing people with phobias and doing this. And, oh, by the way, phobia cure usually lasts 2 to 12 years minimum. That's what psychologists used to say. I mean, imagine having 5 phobias. You'd be in therapy for your entire life. So they're getting people over phobias with a phobia cure in one session, and they're just boom, boom, boom. It's like they were so naive to what they were doing. Now, they knew how they were doing it. In fact, that was the secret, is they knew very specifically step 1, step 2, step 3. They knew exactly what they were doing, not realizing the people that they were studying didn't know consciously what they were doing unconsciously. So here's my point. So therapists in the past were just doing talk therapy. And NLP comes along and says, no, talking about your problems will only make them bigger, because it's what we call stacking anchors. You're just going to make it worse and worse and worse. What they found out that worked was, it's how your brain structures the problem. In other words, the framework, kind of like the frame and the foundation of a house. You have to have a framework to build stuff around. So the 3 things they're focused on is context, process, or structure. We don't carry about the storyline. The storyline in and of itself will not help it change. So a lot of people will talk about the story, talk about the problem. That will do absolutely nothing. In fact, you've probably talked about your problems for years to your friends, family, spouse, therapist, etc., and you still have the same problem. It's because you can't fix it on the level of the problem. You have to shift levels. You have to shift to context, process, or structure. So how is this structured? How does this process? And like, what is causing this to mean that? What is causing this to create these emotions? So we go inside and go, oh, I see what's going on. We just have to disconnect this or rewire this from here to there. It's the same thing in relationships. There's a bunch of unconscious communication patterns that people are completely unaware of that we use every day, all the time. So when we point these out to people, they're like, oh. So my course, Cracked Female Code, is a radically different course. People, when they take my course, are like, wait, where did you learn this? Because I'll have people come to me that are NLP buffs, practitioners, master practitioners, etc. Like, well, I don't remember any of this stuff. I'm like, yeah, this isn't NLP. This isn't Ericksonian hypnosis. This is nothing you're going to learn from the dating relationship experts, the pros. Like, they're not teaching this. This is radically different. It's the other side. It's the stuff I learned from Buddhist monks. It's the stuff that I learned from energy healing and learning how to be conscious, etc., etc. So all of a sudden you're like, wait, the female mating system is wired to what's the word? Not only notice, but to this. It triggers your mating system to connect with a man who's open in this way. When you take the course, whether it's some of the NLP stuff I teach or the stuff that I teach, my stuff, you're going to be blown away at how simple it is to actually understand a woman, to be able to express yourself in a way that she actually receives your love. You're going to learn her unconscious communication patterns. Women and men speak 2 different sub-languages. I'm not kidding. So when you speak the male language, she's getting angry and frustrated, like, what are you saying? And you're like, I just said this. Like, what do you mean? See, we're both completely oblivious and unconscious of each other's unconscious languages. These are 2 unconscious or sub-languages that we speak within a language. So if you speak English in your country, there's the left male language and the right female language. And neither one of you know it. So the way a man romances/seduces a woman is not the way you romance and seduce a woman. That's why women get pissed off and they don't like it. They think it's manipulative and controlling, because it is. It's left brain control. And I come along and like, no, do it the opposite of that. I'm like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, oh, okay. The other problem is men express their love in the male way. Well, that's the way a man receives love, not the way a woman receives love. You have to express yourself on a deeper, more emotionally fulfilling level. Now, right there, women are like, yeah, that's right. And the man's going, oh, okay, so buy her more flowers, more expensive flowers, pay more money? No. So number 1, we make the shifts and changes in the healing work on context, process, or structure. It is not on the story. Or I should say it's not on the level of the story. So talking in circles is not going to make a shift. One of the things we say in NLP is it's kind of like a mechanic. You either know how to fix it or you don't. I mean, you wouldn't take your car to a mechanic who said, well, I don't know if I can fix it. I mean, theoretically, philosophically, like I believe I can, but I don't know. And so I'm going to work on it for a couple hours. I'm going to charge you $125 an hour. And whether I fix it or not, you're still going to pay. And it's like, no, dude, sorry, I'm going to another mechanic. You want to take your car to someone who says, yeah, I know how to fix that. Okay, so let's go back to the two things, coincidence and the exercise. So this is my high school senior year, and I'm just to the right in between those two guys. So I'm in between 46 and number 14. God, we kicked ass that year in football. Okay, so now let's go back to the coincidence. So number one, I'm always telling you guys to hold your emotions, to be with the parts of yourself that are mad, angry, sad, shameful, guilt, whatever negative emotion they carry, to curl up in bed and to be with them and to allow them to just be in their own space and to express themselves without saying, no, don't be angry, be happy, don't change it, just allow it to be in whatever space it needs to be in, because what really needs to happen is it needs you to accept it for just exactly the way it is. And the funny thing is, the moment you do that, it begins to heal and comes back home. So essentially, to own your problems. See, that's how you get at cause. So we go deeper and deeper and deeper to put you at cause, to put you back into your own power over your own life. See, once you own your own problems, you can change it. But as long as you're pushing it away, no, it's not my problem, no, and yet you keep having the same problem, as long as you keep pushing it away, you can't shift it, you can't heal it, you can't change it. But the minute you take ownership, boom, now you're in control. Like what? Like a Spartan warrior, of course. So here I am, yesterday just randomly going through YouTube, and this guy named Bashar, he's this spiritual kind of healer dude. I don't know if you've heard of the guy. He's kind of bald, probably 56 or 58, maybe 60, I don't know. So he asked questions. Okay, so some lady asked him a question. Well, what about your limitations? And I'm kind of like, okay, I'm tuned. So here's what I want to do. Let's make this an exercise. I wasn't going to do that originally, but I want you to think of a problem that you're having right now. And I'm just going to read off verbatim what he said to her, okay? Now, if it doesn't help you with this one, we got another exercise after this. So, number one. So he says, what would I have to believe is true? Now, ask yourself this. What would I have to believe is true about my relationship to this situation in order to feel this way? In order to react like this? Okay, so then he says, sit quietly, having asked that question. You will begin to see that your higher mind, your higher self will help you. If you're willing, if you're not afraid again, if you're willing to dive deep down and find what the beliefs are that are generating that experience, that emotional experience. Okay. So then he goes on to say, so you can use your emotions, so you can find those definitions. Secondly, as soon as you identify the definition, it's gone. Because any belief, any definition you actually consciously identify that is out of alignment with your true self, when you identify it, it will automatically appear logical. It will automatically appear illogical and nonsensical. It won't make sense. That's how you know it's out of alignment with your true self. So as soon as you identify what your belief is that's out of alignment, it will automatically appear illogical to hold on to it. And in that second, you will no longer have it. So identification is release. So here's the funny coincidence. Number one, I'm always telling you guys this, to bring it back home, to hold it, to allow it, to be in its own emotional state. Because when you do that, it allows you to be like, oh, like it allows you to see it for what it is. Number 2, all the languaging patterns and questions that I'll be throwing at you, it helps you to identify it, to pull it out, and you're like, oh wait, that doesn't make sense at all. A lot of times it literally could be a belief that you took on because your older brother, who is 5 years old, said so, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's the way it is. And you go your whole life with this belief, not even realizing that you've been going through life with this childhood belief that wasn't helping you. And when you identify with it, you're like, oh, no wonder why I can't do this, or no wonder why I keep screwing up. So then Jesus says to Mary, you are mine. He didn't reject her. He didn't push the problem of Mary away from him. He brought her in. He claimed her. You are mine. Now, that's symbolic of a very powerful therapeutic technique, to own your own wounds, to own your own issues, because once you own them, now you can heal them. Now you have your power back, and that's what this is all about. So the average person listening to Bashar would be like, I have no idea what he's talking about. That's why he yells out. He goes, so identification of the problem is the release. And I'm just grinning from ear to ear, because I know for a fact that that's true, because that's the work that I've been doing for decades now. So then, I don't know, 18 hours later, 16 hours later, I'm doing this linguistic analysis again of George Harrison's song, This Is Love. And watch this. Alright, here we go. So the third section of the song, he says, since our problems have been our own creation, they also can be overcome when we use the power provided free to everyone. I just made a video about the second part. So the first part, since our problems have been our own creation, now we're taking ownership of it. We're identifying with it. And now it says they also can be overcome. The entire song is therapy. So then it says so they also can be overcome. So we are taking ownership of this. Number 1, have been our own creation. So it's like, wait a minute, there's a specific technique called, let's see if I can find it real quick here. Hierarchy of ideas, where you blow the problem out by causing the person, here it is, hierarchy of ideas, which causes the person to take complete and full responsibility for creating the problem. Because most people don't realize, oh, this is how I do this. I picture it this way. I imagine it this way. I hear a voice behind my head to the right, where my mom used to yell at me all the time because I used to sit at this table and blah, blah, blah. And then I put that person's voice in there, and then that's how I create the problem. That's context, process, or structure. So when we show you how you create it and repeat that process, like baking a pie, following the recipe, it's literally an unconscious recipe in your mind. When we show you what you're doing, then you can completely get rid of it or change it. In fact, I can take something that used to completely disempower you, debilitate you, and crush you, and I could take that very exact same thing and cause it to trigger absolute empowerment, be absolutely powerful, to be strong, to have clarity, to just feel absolutely good about yourself. You have no idea the breakthroughs we've made in psychology and therapy and healing work. It is light years ahead of what they've been doing for the last, I don't know how many hundreds of years or thousands of years. And the thing about it is, people just don't know. Like, okay, so I'm going to go to the therapist and we're just going to talk about my problems. Like, no, listen to that right there. We're going to talk about my problems. Like, no, stop talking about your problems. Let's talk about how we can build a better structure. Let's talk about how we can create a better life. I'll show you how, literally. So it's kind of cool how all this coincided. Number 1, I teach you guys this, how to hold yourself and to be with yourself, speak well of yourself. Bashar comes along and, spills out all these questions. I'm like, man, that's just like the meta model, the the pattern. Let's see, what's the other one? Where did I lose that? Presuppositions, the Milton model, etc., to break people's patterns. So it's literally his questions that he's asking these people that make them go, oh. And then at the very bottom he says, so as soon as you identify with what your belief is that's out of alignment, it will automatically appear illogical it'll automatically appear illogical to hold on to it. And in that second, you will no longer have it because your brain just goes, oh, that's dumb. And boom, it releases it. So then he says, so identification is release. And about 3 or 4 days before that, I just happened to watch the video where Jesus walks into the bar and Mary's about to drink some wine and get drunk to drink her problems away. And Jesus says, no, blah, blah, blah. And she kind of storms out and Jesus follows her and says, Mary Magdalene of, I can't remember the city she was from. I think it was Magdalene. And she turns like, what? Like, who are you? And Jesus essentially eventually goes, you are mine. Like, he claims ownership of her. And then we're doing this linguistic analysis of George Harrison's song, This Is Love. And oh yeah, let me go back to that. All right, so when we analyze this, the very beginning, vicious words drift away from the meaning. It's disconnecting or dissociating the meaning from the vicious words. And not only that, but the vicious words are drifting away. So now the words are drifting away, and it says drifting away from their meaning. So this is a technique we will do that will disconnect the negative emotion to the words that are being said. And then what we'll do, we'll reconnect something much more empowering. And then he says, and the sun melts the chill from our lives. It's like it's melting that coldness away, helping us to, here it says, helping us all to remember what we came here for. This is love. This is la, 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 love. This is love. And he repeats it over and over and over. So now what he's doing, he's installing into you, why are we here? We all came here for love. And he's even using, okay, so when he says we all is the word came here, that's a universal quantifier. This is under the meta model. So he's actually using something that can be, and it's under generalizations, that is a generalization, but he's doing it in a very positive way. All right, so now let's go down a little bit more. So then, towards the third section, he says, since our problems have been our own creation, which is ownership, which is how you take power back. So then he says after that, so since our problems have been our own creation, that's called ownership, that means power. Says, then he goes on to say, they also can be overcome. So now that you're at cause, they can be shifted, changed on context, process, or structure. And then he goes on to say, when we use the power provided free to everyone, this is love, 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 etc. I'm laughing at this point because I'm like, yeah, because love is the power. And this is what I've been going over for the last 2 or 3 months. Love opens the artery, which opens you up to the larger hemispheres, meaning your larger computers. This is your higher consciousness. This is your higher intelligence. So when someone says your higher mind, let's see what else is in here. Your higher self will help you. Your higher intelligence, that literally means your larger. See, what most people don't know is they don't tap into their right brain and open up from their left to right. So they're very limited. They're using a very small part of their computer, which is the lower reptilian brain. When you open up to all 3 of those brains, you maximize the power. It's like 10th to the 10th to the 10th power. You have phenomenal intelligence in you. That's why when I tell you have power, I'm not just being some nice guy. So that song is actually a very therapeutic song. And beyond a shadow of a doubt, they wrote it that way on purpose to help you to heal. On the level of context, process, or structure, especially when applying the meta model, the Milton model, and the presuppositions, that song is phenomenal. Therapeutically. Music, lyrics have impact on you. Even the way he uses the guitar and some other stuff, and the way he zones things out, that they're doing visual swishes, they're doing a zoom in or zoom out. So they're doing all these unconscious things using the instruments as well. So have you ever heard that spelling is literally casting a spell? Because it is. People are always using unconscious linguistic patterns. So this, have you ever had a person like try to shove their belief on you? Like, no, this is the way it is. And here's what they're going to do. They're going to be using all these patterns that they're using in their own mind unconsciously, and they're going to be pushing them off onto you. And this is why they say be very careful of who you hang around with. Hang around people that are successful, because unconsciously they will push those patterns off onto you. Okay? If people hang around with people who are happy, because again, unconsciously they're going to push their unconscious verbal linguistic patterns onto you, and it starts to wear on you. It starts to become a part of your system, and all of a sudden you become happier, wealthier, and more successful. So let's say someone comes along and says, let's see how we do this. You know, you're talking about you're building a business, you're going to build wealth, you're going to build success, you're investing your money, and they're like, money's the root of all evil. And they'll say a bunch of other stuff. All they're doing is they're sharing with you the spells that have been casted on them. The spells that they are literally under. Get away from them. Or let's say you're getting really good at a sport. You're fighting on the national level or competing on the national level or the world level. And someone comes, well, you know, pride is the fall of, you know, whatever. And they just like spout off all this negative shit. And you, like, get them out of your camp. Get them out of your circle. Period. End of sentence. I mean, just look at these people. They're miserable. They're unhappy. They've never succeeded at anything on any level in their entire life. Do not listen to those people. There's some people that honestly believe that work is a punishment and that you're supposed to suffer in order to earn money. Because if you're not suffering emotionally and physically, then you didn't earn it. That's a load of crap. Use your higher mind, your higher intelligence, literally. Okay, so I want you to think of a problem. It could be another one or the same one. I'm going to take you through a very basic questioning pattern, okay? So go ahead and think of the problem. Okay, my problem is I'm not awesome enough. That's an awesome problem, isn't it? Okay, let's get serious. Okay, you ready? You got your problem? Okay, here we go. I'm going to ask you some questions. Ready? So you've got this problem. Mine is I'm not awesome enough. So my question is this. What would happen if you were? Okay, so depending on your problem, I'll say it in this way too. So what would happen if you did? Or what would happen if you could? So let's say someone says, well, I can't make enough money. So I'd say, well, what would happen if you could make enough money? Or what would happen if you did make enough money? Okay, got it? So now I'm going to say this. What would happen if you didn't make enough money? Or what would happen if you couldn't make enough money? Or what would happen if you didn't get over that problem? So just kind of use the ending and shift it to, you know, what your problem is, like couldn't, didn't, etc., to make it fit. So the very first one would be what would happen if you could. Next one, what would happen if you couldn't or didn't. Here's the third one. So what would not happen if you could not solve that problem? I'm going to repeat it. So what would not happen if you could not solve that problem? I want more power. Alright, so if that confused you, that's a really, really good thing. That's the whole point of these questions. It pops you out of that one perspective. It pops you out of the problem, and that's good. So now you get to look around and your unconscious mind will notice other solutions, other possibilities. So if you felt lost, confused, like these questions don't make any sense, perfect. That's exactly where we want you. Now, final question. What would happen if you did solve your problem? What would life be like? So let's say you You completely figured it out. Something shifted. God came down, blessed you, or changed the problem or whatever. And all of a sudden, boom, the problem is solved. So what would happen if you did solve the problem? What would life be like? What would you be able to do? Etc., etc. So if you completely solved your problem, how would you know? How specifically? What would life be like? What would be different? What would change? Like what specifically? How would you know what has changed? Like what would have to happen in order for you, like, if this happened, I know it changed. That's it, guys. Obviously, if I'm working with you one-on-one, I could ask the questions a little bit more appropriately, but I think you get the idea, and hopefully that might have popped you out even a little bit momentarily. Alright, God bless you guys. This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Please, if you like this video, click subscribe, click the like button, make a comment, and if you want, go ahead and make a donation. There's a PayPal link right there in the description box where you can leave a donation. God bless you guys. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.